troops in the Sinai. Syria would join him. Hussein, despite our warnings, joined him from right across the street here. And we were about to be finished. But in 6 days, we turned the tables on them. And of course, we came back to our ancestral homeland in full force. And by the way, we took the high ground, and we will not leave it. It's ours. So, they still didn't give up. They tried the war of attrition, and then in 1973, a combined attack, this time by 2 Arab armies in the Yom Kippur War. They surprised us. Within 3 weeks, we were at the gates of Damascus in Cairo, and that ended that. And so that began this whole situation where they attacked us again and again, created a situation where the Arab world began. Israel is here to stay, and that they have to make their dues with it. And so we began a process that began first with the peace at Camp David between Begin and Sadat, and later the peace with Jordan that was signed by Yitzhak Rabin and King Hussein. And so what you had is that the Arab world was slowly coming to realize that Israel is a fact that cannot be removed, and they were beginning to make peace with us. We couldn't progress on that peace because one part of the Arab world resolutely remained against us, and that's, who's that? Class? The Palestinians. The Palestinians clung to the original opposition to Israel, that basically you do not recognize a Jewish state, the Jewish state, in any boundary, in any form. Israel has to be annihilated. Israel has to be excised like a tumor. That was their position, and that was and remains the principal obstacle to a Palestinian-Israeli peace, the persistent Palestinian opposition to a Jewish state in any form, in any boundary. That's a truth that somehow eludes fairly intelligent people. They sit in the State Department, they sit in the foreign chancelleries of the world. That's a very difficult concept to absorb. How? I think it's so obvious. They keep saying it. They keep doing it. They keep saying, we want a Palestinian state in our ancestral homeland in order to destroy the Jewish state. They say it. They say it in Ramallah. They say it in Gaza. They teach it in Ramallah to their children. They teach it in Gaza. There's no difference in the textbooks, exactly the same. One pays for slay in Ramallah. The other one says, and operates the ICC and conducts warfare against us, lawfare, and all this by heart. And the other says, no, we have to go straight out, militarily and terror. That's the difference between Hamas and the PA. The Hamas says, you'll destroy Israel by terror and military conquest right away. And the PA says, no, you destroy it politically by driving it through propaganda and lawfare to the 67 boundaries, and then you can do the military thrust because you're a few kilometers from the sea. That's the difference between them. But the persistent refusal of the Palestinian Arabs to recognize a Jewish state in any boundary is the source of this conflict for close to 100 years, actually 100 years and more, from the Mufti in the 20s to today in the 20s, a century later. No difference. One before the establishment of the state, and it didn't change after the establishment of the state. So the idea that you'll create a Palestinian state and that will produce peace, I'm saying this for the ambassadors who are here, all of you know this. The idea is folly, nothing more than folly. We just tried a Palestinian state in Gaza. You saw what that brought, right? So we are absolutely clear on that, but it's important to see what happened in the rest of the Arab world. When, after we had these two peace treaties, historic peace treaties with Egypt and with Jordan, these are cold peace treaties because there wasn't really pacification of the population, but between governments. And that still holds, and that's good, because a cold peace is a lot better than a hot war. Okay, that held. It took us another quarter of a century to get the next peace treaty because everybody said the only way you're going to get it is you have to go through the Palestinians. That is, first solve the Palestinian problem, and then you'll get peace with the rest of the Arab world. Remember that? Yeah. Who said John Kerry? 12 points. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's right. He said, it's not going to happen. No, 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 no. He said it 4 times in the Saban Forum. I wish he said 5. We might get 5 countries. But that's what he said. And that was the regnant assumption. And of course, I didn't think so, because if we had to go through the Palestinians, aside from creating a state that will spell the end of Israel, we knew that the Palestinians would not make peace because they don't want a state next to Israel. They want a state instead of Israel. Because we wouldn't succumb to their diktats. And so I decided to do something different. I decided to go around the Palestinians, and we went directly to the Arab capitals, made 4 peace treaties with 4 Arab states in about 2 months. And so we expanded the circle of peace, but the main thing that you can see here is that the number of Arab states that attacked us, 5, arguably 7 states in 1948, 3 in 1967, 2 in the Yom Kippur War, then 1 in the Lebanon War in 1982, kept declining. And basically the Arab world began to normalize its relations with Israel. And that's the good news. The bad news is that the Arab world was being replaced by another much more potent force that appeared on the horizon, and that force is Iran. Beginning with the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979, Iran began to be the potent Islamist force in the Middle East, and basically to replace the Arab world as the engine of attacks against Israel. They were committed to destroy Israel for a simple reason. They're committed, first of all, to conquering the Middle East. And they identified Israel correctly as the only real force that stands in their way locally in the region, because no one else is fighting Iran. The only ones who are willing to fight Iran and are fighting Iran is us. The only ones who are keeping the Middle East in place, as opposed to collapsing before Iranian aggression, is us. If we're not here, the neighboring countries would collapse on the spot. I won't give you details, but there are a lot of details that I could give you. But the ones who don't need the details are the Iranians. They know that very well. So they proceeded to embark on a campaign right from the start that basically targeted Israel, and it's not only to conquer the Middle East, it's for their larger ambition to subjugate all Muslims to their fanatic creed, but also, and that's written in their constitution, but also to export the revolution worldwide. And so their chant right from the start was what? Death to Israel, death to America. Death to Israel, death to America. That's almost a geographic truth. We stand in their way for their larger purposes. So they had to get rid of us. And in order to get rid of us, they designed basically two forms of attack. The first attack was to try to develop over the last 2 decades nuclear weapons. We'll talk about that in a minute. The second line of attack is something they developed piece by piece, step by step, which was to choke Israel by conquering pieces of the Middle East, both for their own reasons, but also as a noose of death around us. And you could see them moving from Iran to Iraq, to Syria, to the Mediterranean and Lebanon. They control Lebanon completely. They control Syria in many ways. They control Iraq. So now they have a continuum right to the sea. And then in the south, in Gaza, Hamas and Islamic Jihad. And then further south, the Houthis. And they have other plans. They would like to conquer the Arabian Peninsula. They would like to topple Jordan. They want to complete the conquest of the Middle East. But what stands in their way? Israel. So if you have this noose of death, tighten the noose. And the plan that they hatched is something that became much clearer to us in the course of the war we've just fought. You know that we were attacked savagely, horribly, in October 7th. I mean, these people are indescribable, actually describable. I mean, Chancellor Scholz, who visited me in the beginning of the war, when he saw the film, the horrors, and visited the sites, he said they're exactly like the Nazis. And I said, no, they're different. Not in intent, not in savagery. But the Nazis tried to hide their crimes, and these people carry GoPro cameras, live. You know, they're ecstatic about the blood they shed, the people they butcher, the women they rape, the men they beheaded, the babies they burned. They're ecstatic about it. So they took 250 and some hostages, of which we recovered so far 197. Uh, 147 are alive, and the remainder are dead. But we intend to recover the rest. There are up to 24 that are alive. The remainder are dead. We intend to bring back all of them. But the most important thing, that we had to do was to stop the invasion, which we did. And as we stopped the invasion and continued to take the fight into their territory, and of course into Lebanon, which Hezbollah joined the day after, we learned basically one simple truth. We learned that Sinwar jumped the gun. He jumped the gun. He deviated from the plan that the noose of death had planned in advance, and that plan was that there will be simultaneous invasions from Gaza and from Lebanon. The distances to the center of the country are very small, and simultaneous pelleting of Israel, barrages of ballistic missiles and rockets in a tiny country that was meant to basically erase Israel. That was the plan. And Hamas didn't wait, couldn't get over themselves. They fired too quickly. In fact, Hezbollah was surprised. They said, why did they tell us? They were supposed to tell us, but they didn't tell them. And so we had time to prevent a similar ground invasion that would have been much more potent, because there's no comparison to the power of Hezbollah. There were